Daniel Grant had it all, or at least, that's what it looked like from the outside. At 38, he was the co-founder of a growing marketing firm in downtown Chicago, living in a condo with floor-to-ceiling windows, a sleek sports car parked downstairs, and a reputation for being sharp, ambitious, and unapologetically bold. But what his investors didn't know was that he had quietly removed the one person who had been with him since the beginning. His wife. Sophie wasn't just his life partner, she had co-built the company with him. She was there in the sleepless nights when they worked off one laptop in their basement. She'd given up her career in teaching, invested her savings, and even took over bookkeeping when they couldn't afford an accountant. And just weeks ago, Daniel fired her. Officially, he said it was to refocus the leadership. But everyone in the office knew the truth. Her replacement was already sitting in the next office. A 26-year-old former intern named Emma Klein, with sharp heels, a contagious laugh, and an uncanny ability to mirror whatever Daniel said. Daniel had told himself it was business. But Sophie hadn't fought back. She hadn't cried, yelled, or even asked why. She'd simply packed her things, handed him her keycard, and walked out. No drama. No scenes. That silence haunted him more than any confrontation would have. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Daniel returned to the office after a week in Cabo with Emma. He strolled through the glass doors of their office suite, tan, grinning, a half-eaten protein bar in hand. Back to the grind, he mumbled, tossing his keys on the marble front desk. But as he passed Sophie's old office, now used for storage, he paused. Something caught his eye on the desk. A small envelope. He frowned. No one should be using that room. He stepped inside, the air heavy with stillness. The blinds were half drawn, and dust had started to settle on the shelves. Lying neatly on the desk was a black and white ultrasound photo, dated March 8, just 2 weeks ago. His stomach turned. His breath caught. The name on the top, Sophie Grant. No. This can't be real. His hands trembled as he picked it up. His heart pounded so loud it drowned out the city noise outside. Sophie had been pregnant. And she never told him. He stumbled back, almost knocking into a chair, his mind spinning. Why wouldn't she tell me? Did she know before I fired her? Was that why she didn't fight? He fumbled for his phone, scrolled through his texts, nothing from her since the day she left. Just silence. Emma poked her head in the doorway. Hey, you okay? You look like you saw a ghost. Daniel blinked at her, swallowing hard. Do you know anything about this? He asked, holding up the ultrasound. Her smile froze. What is that? Sophie was pregnant. Emma's eyes narrowed. That's not possible. I just found this, he snapped, voice rising. In her office. Why would it be here? I don't know. Maybe she planted it to mess with you. To make you feel guilty? Daniel didn't respond. He looked back at the photo. It didn't feel staged. It felt forgotten. Or, left behind on purpose. Later that evening, after Emma had gone home, Daniel sat alone in the office. The lights were dim. Rain tapped gently against the windows. He stared at the ultrasound for what felt like hours. Then, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated. His finger hovered. Then he answered. A man's voice, low and smooth, said. You made your move. Now it's our turn. Before Daniel could respond. Click. The line went dead. He stood up so fast his chair rolled back and hit the wall. Was it a prank? A scam? His mind raced. He called Sophie. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. He opened their shared home security app, access denied. Her social media? Deleted. Their joint bank account? Empty. His name had been removed 2 days ago. Panic started to rise in his throat. Where was she? And who was that man? The next day, Daniel drove to the apartment Sophie had moved into after their separation. The building manager, a sleepy-eyed man in a bear's hoodie, told him she had moved out 3 days ago. No forwarding address. No boxes. Just, gone. Daniel's chest tightened. Did she say where she was going? Nope, the manager replied. Just said she needed quiet. Paid cash. Good tipper. Cash? She never dealt in cash. That night, Daniel sat in his condo, scrolling through their old photos, anniversary dinners, goofy holiday selfies, shots from when they first signed their lease. He found himself staring at one particular photo. It was of Sophie in front of a lighthouse, wind in her hair, smiling like the world had paused just for her. That was in Bar Harbor, Maine. Their honeymoon spot. Something tugged at him. He checked flight bookings. Her name didn't show up on any recent airline tickets. No car rentals. No Amtrak. But he had a gut feeling, Sophie wasn't hiding out in a city. She was off the grid. And he had no idea why. On Thursday morning, another message came. This time, not a call. It was a handwritten envelope slipped under his office door. No name. No stamp. Just his initials on the front, DG. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. You never noticed what mattered. But you'll notice what's gone. Attached was a photo. Not of Sophie. But of Emma. Asleep in her apartment. Taken through the window. At night. Daniel's blood ran cold. Someone was watching them. And not just Sophie. He dialed Emma immediately. No answer. Then he drove to her place. Pounded on the door. She finally opened, groggy, wearing a robe. What the hell, Daniel? He held up the photo. Someone took this of you. Look. She gasped, covering her mouth. What is this? Who would? I don't know, Daniel muttered, pacing the hallway. But it's not just Sophie. Someone's playing a game. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the ultrasound photo. The vanishing bank accounts. The voice on the phone. Then he remembered something. Sophie's father had been a private investigator before he passed away. She always said he'd taught her how to disappear without leaving a trace. It used to be a joke between them. Now it wasn't funny. At 3:17 a.m., another message came in. This time to his personal email. Subject line, Part 1, Discovery. No sender. It contained only one line. Sometimes what breaks us is what saves us. And one attachment. A security camera screenshot of Daniel from the office hallway. Timestamped yesterday. But from a camera that had been removed months ago. The sun had barely risen, and yet Daniel couldn't tear himself away from the haunting message that had arrived in the early hours of the morning. The image of him, caught on a security camera he was certain hadn't been operational for months, made him feel exposed, vulnerable. Who was watching him? Who was behind this? His mind was racing as he paced through his apartment, the walls feeling like they were closing in. The security camera footage had been timestamped from yesterday, but he hadn't seen any maintenance crew, hadn't seen anyone who could have made such an adjustment. The feeling of being hunted was creeping up on him, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel didn't feel in control. A plan takes shape. At 8:30 a.m., he stood in front of his office building, staring at the entrance as though waiting for it to reveal its secrets. He had no idea where Sophie was, but he knew he had to find her before this spiraled any further. He couldn't shake the image of the ultrasound photo, nor the cryptic messages that had been piling up. Someone was orchestrating this, someone who knew far more than he did. He stepped into the building, ignoring Emma's worried glance as she passed him in the hallway. She was avoiding his gaze, and he could feel the tension between them. "Morning," she said weakly. "Morning," Daniel mumbled, distracted. He wasn't sure if he could trust her anymore. He opened the door to his office, sat at his desk, and immediately started making calls. He contacted private investigators, tried tracing any digital footprints Sophie had left behind. Her phone was still off, and there was no sign of activity on her credit cards or bank accounts. There had to be something. That's when it hit him, Bar Harbor. Sophie had always talked about wanting to visit again. Could it be possible that she had gone back there without telling anyone? Maybe, just maybe, this was a clue he had missed. He quickly booked a flight to Maine, not even bothering to pack a bag. He needed to find answers, and fast. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that Sophie's disappearance was no coincidence. The journey to Bar Harbor. The flight to Maine was long and uneventful. Daniel stared out the window, lost in thought. His mind kept circling back to the strange events unfolding around him. Every time he thought he was getting closer to the truth, another twist appeared, and the ground beneath him shifted. His emotions were a tangled mess of fear, guilt, anger, and confusion. He arrived at Bar Harbor by mid-afternoon and rented a car at the airport. As he drove through the winding coastal roads, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The landscape was stunning, but it did little to calm his nerves. Bar Harbor, with its quiet charm, was now a backdrop for a personal nightmare. He checked into a local inn and asked the receptionist if anyone matching Sophie's description had been around recently. The woman squinted at him, clearly not recognizing Sophie from her description, but offered him a list of the recent guests who had checked in. One name stood out, Carla Henderson. That name didn't mean anything to him at first, but the last name, Henderson, struck him like a bolt of lightning. Sophie's mother's maiden name was Henderson. Could it be a coincidence? He didn't believe in coincidences anymore. Tracking down the stranger. The next morning, Daniel took a trip to the local diner where most of the locals gathered. He sat at the counter, ordered a coffee, and began asking questions about anyone named Carla Henderson. The elderly waitress, who had seen everyone in town at some point, gave him a wary look. "Never heard of her," she said bluntly. "We don't get many newcomers around here." Daniel wasn't buying it. He stood up, paid for the coffee, and decided to visit the address listed for Carla Henderson. It was a small house on the edge of town, tucked behind a thicket of trees. It looked like the kind of place you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. He knocked on the door, and a woman in her early 40s opened it. She had the same dark hair as Sophie, the same sharp eyes, though she seemed far less welcoming. "Can I help you?" she asked in a guarded tone. "I'm looking for Sophie Grant," Daniel said, his voice shaky. "She might have stayed here recently. Do you know her?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "I don't know who you are, but I'm not talking to strangers." "I'm her husband," Daniel said quickly. I think she's in danger." At the mention of danger, the woman's expression shifted. She stepped back, silently inviting him in. "You better sit down," she said, leading him into a cozy living room. "You've been asking around, haven't you?" Daniel sat down hesitantly, feeling more uneasy by the second. He had no idea what was going to happen next, but he knew he had to hear her out. "Sophie didn't just disappear," the woman said, her voice low and steady. "She's hiding, and she's been preparing for this for a long time." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? Who is she hiding from?" The woman's gaze softened, but it was clear she wasn't going to spill everything at once. "It's complicated. Sophie, she's been trying to protect you, Daniel. You've been in danger for weeks." He felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Danger? From who? The woman looked away, as though weighing her words. From someone who's been watching you both for months. Someone who knows far more than you realize. The revelation. As Daniel's mind raced, the woman, Carla Henderson, Sophie's estranged aunt, began to reveal the unsettling truth. Sophie had known something was coming, something dangerous. Sophie hadn't disappeared by accident. She had fled to protect herself, and Daniel. Your wife, Carla began, her voice cracking, she's always been a fighter. But when she found out what was really going on with your company, she knew it was only a matter of time before someone came after you. Who? Daniel demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma, Carla said quietly, her eyes filled with sorrow. She's not who she seems. And she's been working with someone. Someone powerful. The room felt like it was closing in on him. Emma, the woman he had trusted with everything, was involved in something much darker than he could have imagined. Emma? Daniel whispered. But she seemed so. Don't trust her, Carla warned. She's been manipulating you, Daniel. Sophie knew the moment she entered the picture. She tried to warn you, but you were too blinded by your ambition. That's why she left. To save you. Daniel stood up abruptly, his mind racing. I need to find Sophie. Carla's eyes softened with understanding. She's at a safe house, Daniel. But it's not just about finding her anymore. It's about uncovering the truth. And it's bigger than you think. The chase. Daniel left Carla's house with more questions than answers. His mind was spinning, and his heart was pounding. Sophie had been trying to protect him from Emma, and from whatever forces were pulling the strings behind the scenes. He had to find Sophie, and fast. But he knew the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. Every step he took felt like he was being watched. As he drove back to the inn, a familiar face appeared in his rearview mirror. It was Emma. Daniel's heart skipped a beat when he saw Emma's car in his rearview mirror. The streets of Bar Harbor were quiet, the kind of sleepy coastal town that should have made him feel at ease, but instead, it made his skin prickle. The calm, peaceful town seemed like the perfect backdrop for something much darker. Emma was following him. He floored the accelerator, urging the car forward, but Emma's sleek black sedan stayed glued to his tail. The road ahead wound through dense trees, and Daniel knew that any attempt to lose her here was futile. This wasn't the kind of place you could escape with a simple turn. What does she want? Daniel's mind raced. Was Emma following him because she suspected something? Was she trying to stop him from finding Sophie? Or worse, was she trying to keep him from finding out the truth? His knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel, his thoughts a whirlpool of fear, anger, and betrayal. If she's been playing me this whole time. He couldn't believe it. Emma had been more than just a colleague. They had shared intimate moments. They had laughed together. She had become a fixture in his life. Now, she was a threat. The confrontation. The car ahead of him slowed as they approached a fork in the road. Daniel took a deep breath, and without thinking, he swerved left, hoping Emma would fall for the simple trick. The sedan followed, tires screeching as she took the same turn, but there was no escape now. It was as if she was determined to stay right behind him. He knew he had to face her. He couldn't keep running. Not anymore. As he rounded the corner into a small clearing, Daniel slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as he came to a stop. The sedan's headlights flashed behind him, and Emma pulled up beside his car, parking a mere few feet away. She stepped out of her vehicle with that same calm, collected demeanor, as though nothing was out of the ordinary. "Daniel," she said, her voice soft, almost soothing. "Why are you running from me?" He didn't even let her finish. He jumped out of his car and marched toward her, his hands trembling with a mix of fury and confusion. "What the hell, Emma? His voice cracked. "What the hell are you doing?" Emma didn't flinch. She met his gaze with a cool, unwavering stare. "What do you think I'm doing, Daniel?" "I don't know anymore," he spat. "You've been playing me, haven't you? This whole time, haven't you? I thought I could trust you. I brought you in, I defended you, and this is what you've been doing?" Emma raised an eyebrow, her lips curving into a slight, almost knowing smile. "You're angry. You should be. But it's not what you think." Daniel shook his head, backing away as the weight of the words crashed into him. "How long, Emma? How long have you been working with them? With whoever is behind this?" Her smile faded, and for the first time, a flicker of doubt appeared in her eyes. "What makes you think it's me?" Daniel clenched his fists. "The photos, the phone calls, the security footage. You've been following me. And now you're following me here. Sophie knew something, didn't she? That's why she left, Emma. She left because of you." A long pause settled between them, thick with unspoken truths. Emma's eyes shifted downward for a moment, then back up, her gaze cold again. "You have no idea what you're talking about, Daniel." "Then tell me. Tell me what's going on," he demanded. "I want answers. Now." She sighed, rubbing her temples as if Daniel's questions were an inconvenience. "I've tried to protect you. I tried to warn you. But you," she cut herself off and stepped back, looking around cautiously. "I can't keep doing this." "Doing what? Protecting me? Or lying to me?" Daniel snapped. Emma hesitated, her eyes flickering with something he couldn't quite place. Fear? Regret? Or maybe it was guilt. But she stood her ground, finally saying something that made his blood run cold. "You think I've been manipulating you, Daniel? Fine. But you need to know something. Sophie knew what she was doing. She knew exactly what would happen if you found out the truth." "What truth?" Daniel whispered, as though the words were too dangerous to say aloud. Emma's lips trembled, but she didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to him without a word. The paper was a receipt from a local real estate agency, and as Daniel's eyes scanned the document, his stomach dropped. It was signed by Sophie. "Wait," Daniel muttered, his hands shaking as he read the address. It was for a house. A house in Bar Harbor. But why? Sophie had never mentioned anything about buying a house here. Emma's voice cut through his shock. "She's been planning to disappear for a long time, Daniel. And she didn't want you to know." "Why not? Why wouldn't she want me to know?" "Because it wasn't just about you. It was about the company. It was about all of it." Emma's voice grew quieter, almost as if she was afraid of what she was saying. "You were in danger, Daniel. And you still are. The real enemy." The revelation hung in the air like a weight. Daniel's mind whirled with confusion. How could Sophie be planning to disappear? Why hadn't she told him? She had never been the type to keep secrets, at least, that's what he had always thought. But if she knew about the danger, why wouldn't she come to me? Daniel asked, struggling to understand. "Why leave me out of it?" Emma sighed deeply, her expression softening slightly. "She didn't want to drag you into it. She didn't want you involved. And the people who are behind this, who've been watching you, are much bigger than either of you ever realized. You have no idea what you've gotten involved in." "Who are they?" Daniel whispered, his voice shaking now. "Who's behind all of this?" Emma's eyes locked with his, her lips parting as if she was about to reveal something she had kept hidden for far too long. But before she could speak, a loud noise echoed from the trees, something cracking. Branches snapping. Emma's eyes widened. "We're not alone." The chase begins again. Before Daniel could react, figures emerged from the shadows. Two men, tall and muscular, stepping out of the woods with the kind of quiet precision that made Daniel's heart race. "Emma," one of them called, his voice deep and commanding, "we need to talk." Daniel backed up instinctively, his hand brushing the side of the car, searching for something, anything, he could use to defend himself. But he didn't have time. The men were already closing in, their eyes cold and calculating. "Who are you?" Daniel shouted, trying to mask his fear with anger. "Just a few people trying to clean up your mess, Mr. Grant," the second man replied, his voice low and menacing. Emma didn't move. She stood frozen, caught between Daniel and the approaching figures, her face expressionless. "They're here for you," Emma said softly, her voice carrying a strange mix of fear and resignation. "And they've been waiting a long time." The air had gone still. For a moment, Daniel could only hear the distant crashing of waves against the rocky shoreline, but his heart was pounding in his chest, drowning out everything else. His eyes darted between Emma, the two men emerging from the shadows, and the dark woods that stretched behind them. He felt trapped. Surrounded. And the sense of dread settling in his bones was unlike anything he had ever felt before. "What have I walked into?" The two men stood with military precision, their eyes trained on Daniel as if they already knew what he was thinking. Emma, still rooted in place, seemed to have no intention of running, no desire to warn him further. In fact, her stillness unnerved him more than anything else. She wasn't afraid. But why? Had she been a part of all this from the start? "Emma." Daniel whispered, trying to catch her gaze, his voice breaking slightly. "Who are they?" She didn't answer him directly, but her lips parted as if she was about to speak. Before she could, one of the men, tall, with dark hair and a sharp jawline, took a step forward, his movements smooth and deliberate. "Mr. Grant," the man's voice was calm but edged with something darker. "We've been looking for you." Daniel's throat went dry. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The second man, broader in build with a weathered face, cracked his knuckles, the sound of it unnervingly loud in the otherwise silent space. He didn't speak, but his eyes narrowed, watching Daniel like a predator. "You're asking the wrong questions," the first man said. His tone was almost patronizing, as if he were speaking to a child. "You should be asking how we can help you." Daniel took a step back, his body reacting instinctively. "Help me," he repeated, his voice rising. "You're not here to help. You're here to intimidate me. And I'm not just going to stand here and let you." Before he could finish his sentence, the man raised his hand, silencing him instantly. His eyes were cold, calculating. "You've been trying to find answers. That's admirable. But the truth," the man's voice dropped to a whisper, and Daniel leaned in slightly, unable to resist. "The truth will destroy you." The weight of the man's words settled over him, making his stomach churn. He tried to move again, to get closer to Emma, but the two men were quick to position themselves between him and her. They weren't even trying to hide it. They were sending a clear message: Daniel wasn't in control here. He was a pawn in their game. "I don't care about your games," Daniel said, his words sharp, even though his pulse was racing. "I just want to find Sophie." The two men exchanged a glance, one that seemed loaded with meaning, and then the man who had spoken first nodded. "Sophie Grant," he said slowly, savoring the name. "Ah, yes. She's become quite the problem for us. But it's nothing we can't manage." Daniel's mind reeled, but before he could ask anything else, Emma stepped forward, her face a mask of emotionless calm. She placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, a touch that felt strangely reassuring, and yet, unnerving. "Listen to them," she said softly. "They're trying to help you. They're trying to keep you safe." "Safe?" Daniel spat. You're telling me this is how you keep me safe? With threats, lies, and intimidation? Emma didn't flinch. This is bigger than you, Daniel. You have no idea what's really going on, do you? The two men exchanged another look, and the first man nodded, his lips curling into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. It wasn't a smile that made Daniel feel reassured, it made his skin crawl. Perhaps it's time for you to understand, the man said. Time for you to see things as they truly are. The truth unfolds. The man motioned to Emma, who reluctantly stepped aside, allowing Daniel to see what was in front of him. To his surprise, the man didn't grab him or restrain him. Instead, he pulled out a small device from his coat pocket, something that looked like a tablet. He turned it on with a single swipe and handed it to Daniel, who hesitated before accepting it. The screen lit up with several grainy images, all taken from security cameras. The footage wasn't just of Daniel, it was of Sophie too. And as he stared at the footage, his stomach twisted in knots. The first video showed Sophie entering a building Daniel didn't recognize. She was alone, walking with purpose, looking over her shoulder every now and then as if she was being followed. The second video was even more disturbing. Sophie was in a meeting with a man. The man was older, wearing a suit, and his body language exuded power and authority. Sophie appeared to be arguing with him, her face flushed with frustration. The words weren't clear, but the tension between them was palpable. What is this? Daniel whispered, his hands trembling as he clutched the tablet. It's just the beginning, the man replied coolly. You see, Mr. Grant, your wife wasn't just trying to protect you. She was trying to protect herself. Daniel's blood ran cold. Protect herself from what? From who? The man's smile widened, but it was devoid of warmth. From the people she's been working with for years. And from the people who have been pulling the strings all along. The unseen enemy. The words echoed in Daniel's mind as if they were reverberating through the walls of his mind. Sophie had been working with someone dangerous, someone he didn't know. And this wasn't just about Emma. It wasn't about betrayal in the way he had thought. Sophie had been in deeper than he could have ever imagined. The man didn't let him linger on the thought for long. Your wife has been involved in something much bigger than you realize. The company you've worked so hard to build? It's just the surface. There's a whole network underneath it. And Sophie has been a part of it from the start. Daniel's head spun. His hands clenched at his sides, nails digging into his palms. A network? What did that even mean? His company, the very thing that had consumed his life for so long, was part of something illegal? Or worse, something far more dangerous. But why? Why didn't she tell me? Daniel muttered, his voice shaky. Why wouldn't she just tell me the truth? The man's smile faded, replaced by a look of almost pity. You still don't get it, do you? Sophie didn't trust you, Daniel. Not like you think. She wasn't just protecting you, she was protecting herself from you. Daniel took a step back, as though the words had physically hit him. He looked at Emma for some kind of reassurance, but she had already turned away, her expression unreadable. I know this is hard to accept, the man continued. But now that you've crossed the line, there's no going back. And your involvement in all of this? It's only going to get you more entangled in a web you can't escape from. The choices. Daniel stood there, frozen. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything he had just learned. His whole life, the life he thought he had with Sophie, was built on lies. Sophie hadn't just left him to protect him, she had left him because there were things he couldn't know. Things he wasn't meant to understand. The man's voice cut through his thoughts. There are two choices for you, Daniel. You can continue to search for Sophie, which will only bring more danger to your door. Or you can walk away. Let it go. Forget you ever knew her. Daniel didn't even have to think about it. His heart was beating too fast, and his mind was too clouded with rage, disbelief, and fear. "I'm not walking away," he said, his voice low and firm, despite the pounding in his chest. "I'm going to find Sophie. And I'm going to find out who's really behind all of this." The man's eyes softened, almost imperceptibly, as if he expected Daniel to say exactly that. "Very well," he said. "But remember this, Daniel, the game has already started. And once you're in it, there's no getting out." Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps as the cold, salty air of Bar Harbor bit at his skin. His thoughts were clouded, his mind racing with questions that had no answers. The more he learned, the less he understood. He wanted to stop. He wanted to run from it all, to retreat to a place where nothing seemed so complicated. But there was no escape now. The man's words from earlier echoed in his mind, each syllable sharpening the weight of his situation. The game has already started. And once you're in it, there's no getting out. He wasn't sure whether to feel relief or dread, but one thing was certain, his life as he knew it was over. Everything had changed. Sophie's disappearance, Emma's involvement, the two mysterious men, the dark secrets they were hinting at. It was all tied together. And the pieces were falling into place whether he was ready for it or not. The cold wind whipped around him as he stood at the edge of the cliff, staring down at the churning waves below. He could feel his pulse pounding in his ears, but his mind kept going back to one thing: Sophie. She had to be out there, somewhere, hiding. But why had she left? Why had she not trusted him enough to share the truth? Daniel's hands trembled as he fumbled for his phone, the familiar weight of it in his pocket feeling like an anchor to the past. He needed to call her. He needed to find her. But as he swiped through his contacts, one name stood out: Emma. His finger hovered over the screen, but before he could dial, the unmistakable sound of tires on gravel made him freeze. He quickly pocketed the phone, his body instinctively turning toward the noise. It was them. He could tell. 3 black SUVs pulled up behind him, their headlights slicing through the darkness like a warning. The vehicles stopped in a neat line, their engines humming ominously. As the doors opened, the 2 men from earlier stepped out, flanked by a few others. They moved with the same deliberate precision as before, their faces unreadable. Daniel's pulse quickened. There was no more room to run. No more room to hide. He was in this now. And there was no turning back. "You've made a mistake, Daniel," the first man, the one who had spoken so calmly earlier, said as he approached. His eyes were cold, like 2 shards of ice. "You've crossed the line. And now you'll have to face the consequences." Daniel stood his ground, refusing to show fear. He was tired of being afraid, tired of being manipulated by people he didn't even know. His voice was steady, though his heart hammered in his chest. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, his tone hardening. "But I will find out the truth. And I will find Sophie." The man didn't flinch, but the faintest glimmer of something, amusement, flickered in his eyes. "You think you're the one in control here, Daniel? You think you can just waltz in and find answers? That's not how this works." Daniel clenched his fists, the adrenaline coursing through him. He wasn't going to let them intimidate him. Not anymore. "I don't care how it works," he replied, his voice low. "I don't care who you think you are. All I care about is Sophie. And I'm going to find her." The man tilted his head slightly, as if considering Daniel's words. Then he shook his head. "You still don't get it, do you? Then explain it to me," Daniel shot back. "Because right now, all I see is a bunch of people who are too afraid to tell me the truth." The man's expression darkened, his patience clearly wearing thin. "The truth, Daniel, is that you're in the middle of something much bigger than you ever imagined. And you're not ready for what's coming." Daniel swallowed hard, but he didn't back down. I don't care what's coming. I don't care about your threats. I want to know what happened to my wife. The man sighed, a heavy, almost resigned sound. All right. You want answers? You'll get them. But not here. Not now. Before Daniel could respond, one of the men stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder, a grip that was firm but not threatening. You're coming with us, the man said. It wasn't a question. It was an order. Daniel's eyes darted around, looking for an escape route, but there was nowhere to go. The men were closing in. He could feel the weight of their presence like a physical force, suffocating him, pressing in on all sides. What do I do? His mind raced for a solution. He needed to get out of there, to find Sophie. But how? He couldn't take on all these men. He wasn't equipped for this. He wasn't prepared. And yet, as the men moved toward him, something inside Daniel clicked. A quiet resolve settled within him. He wasn't going to let them take him, not without a fight. He would find a way out. He had to. A dangerous bargain. I'm not going anywhere with you, Daniel said, his voice hardening with defiance. His heart was pounding in his chest, but his eyes locked onto the man who had been speaking to him. He could see the faintest flicker of surprise in the man's eyes, but it quickly turned to something darker, anger. You really think you have a choice? The man asked, stepping closer, his expression hardening. You think you're in control here? You're not. You're in a game that's already been decided. Daniel stepped back, his body tense. You can threaten me all you want, but I'm not going down without a fight. The man narrowed his eyes. Then you'll make it harder on yourself. We're giving you a chance to make the right choice. But if you want to keep fighting, we'll make sure you regret it. As if on cue, two of the men moved to grab him, but Daniel was ready. In one swift motion, he sidestepped and shoved one of the men, sending him stumbling forward into the other. They collided with a grunt, momentarily losing their balance. Daniel didn't wait for them to recover. He sprinted toward the nearest SUV, ducking low, and tried to open the door. It was locked. Damn it. Without wasting another second, he yanked at the door handle again, this time with all his strength. The door popped open, and he dove inside, slamming the door shut behind him. He didn't know what to do next, but instinct told him to start the engine. He turned the key, the engine roaring to life. But as he put his foot on the gas, the vehicle jerked forward only a few feet before a sharp pain shot through his side. One of the men had reached the car and slammed a gun into the window, cracking it. Get out, Daniel, the man's voice was low and threatening. Daniel froze. His breath came in ragged gasps as he weighed his options. He could fight. He could die trying. Or he could play their game, go with them, and hope he could find a way to escape later. No. I'm not going down like this. He slammed his foot on the gas again, driving the SUV forward. But this time, he didn't stop. Tires screeched against the gravel as the vehicle rocketed down the path, the men shouting behind him. The hunt begins. As Daniel sped through the winding roads, his thoughts were a blur. He didn't know how long he could keep this up. He didn't know where he was going. But one thing was clear, he couldn't stop now. Not when Sophie was out there somewhere, not when his life had already been irrevocably changed. He glanced in the rearview mirror. The SUVs were in pursuit, their headlights flashing in the distance. Daniel didn't have much time. He had to lose them. He had to find Sophie. But how? The path ahead was empty, and he knew these men weren't going to let him get away easily. The tires of the SUV screeched against the gravel road, sending up a cloud of dust as Daniel pushed the accelerator harder, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. The men were still behind him, their headlights cutting through the night, but he was determined, desperate. He couldn't let them catch him. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. The road ahead was a blur of darkness, trees pressing in on either side, but Daniel's eyes were fixed on the way forward. His pulse raced, his thoughts scattered, but there was one singular truth in his mind: Sophie. He had to find her. No matter the cost. I will not let them win. The sound of the engines grew louder, closer. The men were gaining on him. Daniel's mind raced, calculating his options. He had no plan. He had no backup. But he knew one thing: if he kept driving, kept running, he would never find Sophie. He would never know the full truth. And maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't survive to see another day. The SUV behind him flashed its high beams, and Daniel's hands gripped the wheel tighter. The road was narrow here, curving sharply ahead. He glanced in the rearview mirror, and for a fleeting second, he saw the dark shapes of the vehicles closing in. He had to think quickly. If he didn't get away, this would be his final drive. In a split second, he made his decision. With a sharp turn of the wheel, Daniel veered off the road, driving straight into the woods. The trees seemed to stretch up like shadows, their branches reaching out as if they were trying to claw at the vehicle. The engine roared as Daniel pushed the gas pedal to its limit, feeling the car shake with the uneven terrain. Behind him, the SUVs followed, their headlights still piercing through the dark. He couldn't escape them in the woods, not without a fight. Daniel didn't look back. He focused on the trail ahead, the rough ground shaking him and the car. The forest was dense here, and the road was barely more than a narrow track. He could hear the men's vehicles behind him, their tires scraping against the earth. I can't outrun them forever. The thought hit him like a punch to the stomach. He couldn't keep this up. He needed to get off the road, find a way to lose them, or he would never make it to Sophie. The men weren't going to stop chasing him until they had him in their grasp. He took a sharp turn to the left, narrowly missing a large boulder, and slammed the brakes. The tires screamed in protest as the vehicle skidded, but Daniel was already out of the SUV before it had fully stopped. His heart was hammering in his chest, his legs shaking as he hit the ground. The dark forest was all around him, the trees towering above, their twisted limbs like arms reaching out to grab him. Daniel glanced back only for a second, seeing the SUVs come to a screeching halt behind him. He was running now, as fast as his legs could carry him. But he could hear them. The men weren't far behind. The hidden truth. As Daniel ran deeper into the woods, his mind raced. His breath came in ragged bursts, his shoes pounding against the earth. He wasn't sure where he was going. He wasn't sure how long he could keep running. But he couldn't stop. Sophie was out there. She was real. She was alive. But why had she left him? Why had she gotten involved in all of this? Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that the pieces were there, if only he could see them, if only he could put them together. The men chasing him weren't just after him. They were after Sophie. They were after something much bigger. His thoughts were interrupted by a loud crack. A branch broke underfoot, and Daniel froze. His breath hitched. They were close now. Too close. He ducked behind a tree, pressing his back against the rough bark, trying to make himself as small as possible. His pulse pounded in his ears as he tried to listen, to hear any sign of the men's approach. They were coming. He could hear their footsteps, the crunching of leaves beneath their boots. Then, a voice, a familiar voice, cut through the air, sending a chill down his spine. Daniel. It was Emma. He felt his chest tighten. He didn't want to see her, didn't want to hear her voice. But there she was, standing in front of him, her face unreadable in the dim light of the moon. Emma, he said, his voice hoarse. What are you doing here? They're coming. We need to go. We need to. No, she interrupted, her voice low but firm. You need to listen to me. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. There was something different in her tone. Something urgent. "You're too late," she continued, stepping closer. "You don't know everything. You don't understand why Sophie did what she did." Daniel felt a surge of frustration. "I don't care. I just want to find her. I just want to know why she was trying to protect you," Emma snapped. "You're in over your head, Daniel. This is bigger than both of you." Daniel shook his head, feeling the weight of her words like a crushing force. "I don't care about this. I care about her." Emma's face softened for a moment, but only for a second. "You have to stop this. The more you dig, the more dangerous it becomes. And not just for you, for Sophie too." "What does that even mean?" Daniel asked, his voice rising in frustration. "What are you talking about?" Emma took a deep breath, then whispered, "The men chasing you, they're not just after you. They're after her." Daniel's heart skipped. "What?" "They've been watching her for years, Daniel. They've been watching both of you. The whole time." The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. "You mean they've been—" Daniel stopped himself, unable to say the words. The realization was too much to process. Emma nodded. "It's the company. The one you built. The one Sophie helped you build. There's something they want from her. And they're not going to stop until they get it." Daniel's mind reeled. His heart pounded harder, but the pieces of the puzzle were starting to click into place. Sophie had been a part of something. Something dangerous. Something he didn't understand. And now, these men wanted her, and they would do anything to get her back. "Where is she?" Daniel asked, his voice urgent. "Where is she now?" Emma's eyes flickered to the side, as if searching for the right words. "I can't tell you. Not yet. But there's a place. A safe house. It's the only place she's safe." Daniel's chest tightened. "Then take me to her. Please, Emma." She hesitated, then nodded, her face grim. "Follow me. The safe house." They moved swiftly through the woods, the sounds of the pursuing men growing fainter with each step. Emma led Daniel down a winding path, past thick clusters of trees, through brush that seemed to grow tighter with every passing moment. The air was damp, the earth soft beneath his boots. His body ached from the effort, but he couldn't afford to stop. Eventually, they came to a clearing. In the center, there was an old cabin, hidden away from the world, surrounded by dense trees. It looked abandoned, forgotten. But to Daniel, it was the last place he wanted to be. The place where the answers would finally come. Emma turned to him, her face serious. "This is it. This is where Sophie is." Daniel didn't hesitate. He followed her to the door, his heart hammering in his chest. This was it. This was the moment. The moment he would finally find out the truth. Emma opened the door, and Daniel stepped inside, his breath catching in his throat. And there, standing in the dim light, was Sophie. Her eyes were wide with surprise, her hair messy, her clothes wrinkled. She looked exhausted, scared. But she was there. She was real. And she was alive. "Sophie," Daniel breathed, his voice cracking. She didn't speak immediately. She just looked at him, her face a mixture of relief and sorrow. Then, she took a step forward and collapsed into his arms, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Daniel," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you. But I had to protect you. I had to protect us." Daniel held her tightly, his chest tightening. "What's going on, Sophie? What did you get involved in?" Sophie looked up at him, her eyes filled with sorrow and regret. "I had no choice. They would have killed me if I didn't play along." Emma stepped back, allowing them a moment. She didn't say anything, but the weight of her presence was undeniable. "They've been after us for so long, Daniel," Sophie continued, her voice shaking. "The company, the people we worked for, they were never what they seemed. And the men who have been chasing you, they're not just thugs. They're part of something much bigger. A syndicate. A group that has been using us for years. And they're not going to stop until they get what they want." Daniel listened in silence, his mind trying to process everything Sophie was telling him. This wasn't just about a simple betrayal. It wasn't just about Sophie leaving. This was a conspiracy. A network of power and corruption that went deeper than he could have ever imagined. And now, they were all trapped in it.